Let's go into this solar flare that we see right here. What's so interesting about this is that it just happened and it is across multiple sunspot groups. So it's interesting for a whole bunch of reasons. That's why I'm doing this live stream, even though it is late at night. Luckily, since I practice earthing, I find that I actually don't have like a circadian rhythm of like sleeping a perfect 8 hours every day. I find myself falling asleep and taking little naps preemptively before I need the energy, which is interesting. So side benefit to earthing, FYI, for all of y'all that are playing around with that health and wellness modality. But here are these sunspot groups here. You can even have a reverse one there where it is the magnetic polarity is opposite of what it normally should be. It's like a 3% chance. But all these sunspots here, this big magnetic region is working together to create this solar flare that we just saw. Let's watch our video here from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Here we see the recent flare activity. I reported on that recently. All of them have been working together. There's that lower sunspot region right there. But at the very end, you'll see at the very end, just wait. It just happened. This literally just happened. Right there. Big solar flare. And what's interesting about it is that it's continuing on. This SDO ends at around 2400 UTC for the 7th. So we're actually beyond that now. John Baxter, 335. Man, you're a real night owl, sir. Good on you for being here. And so if we go to our X-ray flux here by the GO satellite, of course, it picks it up within 8 minutes. You can see just how wide and broad this flare is. It's not a X-class. It did not go into X-class region, but wow, really, really big. And hello, everyone else, of course. Thank you all so much for joining in the live stream. This is really fun. I'm happy to do these. I think I'll be doing more of them as time goes on. But if we go back to the 3rd here, let's look at that. We just see how much activity these sunspots have had. And we can even see the drop in their activity after they did all this, but then they ramped back up again with this most recent, very broad solar flare. So I wanted to show you all this. This is not in the WSA model yet. If we go here, they actually revised it and made it a little bit more precise. You can see that first one went out. This is what I showed with that last live stream. They differentiated them more. There's the impact right there. We can go back. And that's what we saw today, May 7th. Right around this time is when we saw that CME come in. Because if we go to our real-time solar wind, here's where I was reporting on the last one. Interplanetary magnetic field, which I want to talk about more in this video to help you conceptualize and understand this intuitively. That went up to 15, 14, 16 nanotesla, the black line. Southward component went down to about the same values and negative. And then we had this volatility here where the interplanetary magnetic field stayed fairly elevated until the only real respite was right here. If we look, that's around this low KP region of 1.32 or so. But then it went back up and actually went all the way to a 19 value there. The issue, though, is that the southward component didn't really stay depressed the entire time. So the coupling between this increase in solar wind strength and interplanetary magnetic field strength, it didn't really like connect as well to the Earth as it could have, just because of the direction, the direction of the magnetic field. But you can see the big jumps in this vertical component and going big volatile swings. So that in and of itself is notable, and that is right around that time there. You see 1500 UTC. If we go back to our model here, we see impact coming in right around 1500. A green dot is Earth, by the way. So that little guy right there is the Earth. We see that coming right around 1500. So that's what we've been seeing today. That's what we've been feeling, perhaps. There was a moment where the southward component stayed depressed and elevated for a while. Let's really zoom in on that. We can see it went down here all the way down to negative 14 nanotesla. And the interplanetary magnetic field went up to 14 in and of itself. So we're kind of starting to pull back in from that. But with this most recent solar flare, it is perfectly Earth direct. And I want to talk about, I know this is astronomy, But you also know what my channel is about. My channel is about talking about the science and also maybe going one step further. So I want to throw a little bit of interesting astronomy into this. It's not necessarily something that you need to prescribe to, but it's just something that's actually happening. This is actually astronomy at its base. It's just planetary geometry. We have some interesting planetary geometry with this solar flare. So this is that solar flare. This is the latest image from the SDO. Maybe there's a brand new one that just came out. I collected this to make this video. But let me go to let me go to this because this is what's really interesting. And let me get that. I want to keep that chat up. So there we go. Okay, so we have a conjunction with Uranus and the sun on May 9th. And right now it is just the sun moves 1 degree every day according to astrology. You can split up in 360 degrees. So what's interesting about this is Uranus is the planet of like disruption and chaos. And it has this extremely interesting magnetic field. Its magnetosphere is like crazy. And we know very little about it. That's just based on the Voyager flybys. But I made a video here on Uranus called Uranus's Dynamic Magnetosphere and Planetary Conditions. I suggest you give that a watch. It could be more polished because I made it in the past, but it is still nevertheless a good video if you want to understand these things and understand the really unique electromagnetism dynamics of this planet. Of course, it goes Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, then Neptune, Pluto. Okay, so let's go back here. We have the planet of like disruption and chaos right now in the sign of Taurus, which represents the Earth and stability. It's a fixed sign, and all these characteristics that are really not changing. It's not an air sign. It's not a water sign. It's not a fire sign. This is Taurus, the fixed Earth sign. So it's really like all about Earth stability. And right when it goes conjunct with the sun, effectively, we get this solar flare that's perfectly in line with the Earth. So here we have Uranus way out on the other side of the sun, directly opposite the Earth. And then, of course, we get this solar flare there. So that's just planetary geometry. That's just facts, people. I'm not going into the astronomy necessarily in terms of like, oh, this you could have predicted. But hey, this is what happened. So I find it interesting that these astrological events happen, and then we get these really interesting solar flares or geomagnetic storms. So hey, think of that what you will. But I wanted to just mention that because I would call this like a Uranian solar flare as a result. I think it's just one way to label it because it kind of came out of nowhere. And it's interesting that it's all these sunspot groups here working together to cause that solar flare, as you can so clearly see on this image there. I mean, you can see it arcing between all the different solar flares, even that one section here, which just has isolated polarity, right? It has some of the other polarity around it, but it's not a nice like dipole, you could say. It doesn't have a positive minus, positive negative. So these are all kind of working together. And what this is showing you is that there is like a larger electromagnetic flux within the sun. Of course, we have solar cycle 25, so things are progressing there. The magnetic fields are flipping. Sunspots are going to be moving in general from higher latitudes, mid latitudes, to low latitudes until they get to the equator, and then they terminate. These are called termination bands. So we are going to be seeing these go more equatorial. That's just a natural progression for solar cycle 25, and then the poles will reemerge really strongly, the magnetic poles at the geographic poles. But as they get closer, they're going to be able to interact together more and more because they are in closer proximity to each other. So as these magnetic fields get closer together, they can start to merge and blend and enter in these highly complex dynamic arrangements that can be unpredictable and chaotic and cause solar explosions. So yeah, very interesting. I also want to take a moment to talk about the interplanetary magnetic field because I think there's a little bit of a not misunderstanding, but just in general, like there could be a better conceptual basis for that, which maybe perhaps takes a little bit of time to understand. But maybe our Uranus and Sun Earth graphic actually works the best to show this. If I can find that again, let me pull it up. Okay, so yeah, let's go into this. You have your Sun, which has a magnetic field. And it's a very strong magnetic field. It's the strongest magnetic field in the solar system. And you have the Earth. That has a strong magnetic field, anywhere from 25,000 to 65,000 nanotesla. So that's really good. And then you have Uranus. That has a magnetic field. Jupiter has a magnetic field. Jupiter has the second strongest magnetic field at like 120,000 nanotesla. The Sun is much stronger. But if you were to look at just the magnetic field of the Sun, it follows an inverse square law, which means that it drops off pretty rapidly. And so by time you actually measure the pure magnetic field of the Sun, it is just, I think it's like 0.2 nanotesla by the time it gets to the Earth. Like just the pure magnetic field. But what's interesting about the Sun is that electromagnetics doesn't work exactly like that. You have to look at things from a bigger, more holistic, incorporated standpoint. It's continuously emitting solar wind, and it's continuously emitting plasmoids within the solar wind. So this is basically groups and sections of plasma that have internal coherent rotating structures. These are ions, highly charged, and because they're moving through space-time, they create these magnetic fields. So the Sun is literally flinging mass and matter off of it. These are ions, right? It's not like it's flinging off really complex forms of matter. This is mostly protons and electrons. And you have like a little bit of helium, a little bit of oxygen, and no, I'm not a flat earther. Sorry. Just go ride an airplane or even make a space balloon and send it up with a camera and you can prove that wrong. Okay, so it's sending off these plasmoids and it's sending off this overall plasma sheet. So though the like pure magnetic field of the Sun would drop off to like sub 1 nanotesla, I believe that's the value. Once you get to just even 1 AU away, the solar wind itself effectively carries that solar magnetic field out. I think people understand that, but what you have to kind of go one step further with is that the Earth also has a magnetic field. And as a result, these two are actually very well coupled together. Yes, you can like start to draw lines if you want, but at the end of the day, this is all one system working together. You have the Sun, has a big magnetic field, big electrodynamics at play, and then that merges into interplanetary space, and then that connects to the Earth, and then it has its magnetic field, it has its radiation belts, it has its different electrodynamic properties. So the two are really coupled together, and this also goes for other planets, even though they're further away. So Uranus also has radiation belts. It also has a magnetosphere that's pretty strong. It has actually, we've only done a couple flybys, but we've captured plasmoid activity being flung out the magnetotail from Uranus. So it has all these dynamics at play too. So it's also part of the system. So when you get these interesting geometric alignments, that perhaps could be just enough to cause that extra amount of energy needed to like push something out of the Sun or trigger some, let's say, earthquake on the Earth. There's a very strong link between solar activity and earthquakes on the Earth. So let's go back to our data. I want to show what's been happening. Here is our X-ray flux, very broad flare there. That's the one we're talking about. You can see that our electron flux, it dumped as expected during geomagnetic volatility, starting to rise though. But because we are still in this phase here, it hasn't like rose in its flux yet, so it's still pretty bottomed out, very low here. You can see the log scale. So we went from in red, let's measure red at noontime. That's what the N is for. M is midnight, N is noon. We went from 10 to the 4, even a little beyond that, but let's say 10 to the 4 all the way down to like well, we can even just look at +3. Yeah, so it's like four orders of magnitude. So really big drop in the electron flux in the radiation belts. And then let's look at this flare on this coronagraph there. Let's get this. Okay. You'll see it at the end. This is a close-up view, and this is a further away view. So this is naturally going to look slower when it finally emits. But you'll see that flare right there, very fast. See how fast that was? Very fast. So I think this is going to arrive on the 9th or so. It shot off late on the 7th UTC time. I mean, if we pause it right there, 2348. Actually, more like 2300. Yeah, we're just a little after 2300 UTC, but since it's so fast, I think it's going to arrive on the 9th. If you go to our further out view, C3 view, you can see some corona discharge there already kind of moving out. But then right there, we see it too. And so very, very strong coronal mass ejection off the sun. Yeah, so I wanted to update you all on that, and we can also look at just a little review of what's been happening. We have the DST index here, which is a measure of the ring current strength that runs around the Earth, and when this drops, that's a good indicator of geomagnetic storm conditions. So you can look at this, and we see that last one we had there on yesterday and continuing through dropped all the way to about -50 or so. So, notable, not huge geomagnetic storm, but notable. If we go back to April, we'll see our really big one there, right there, nearly hit -200. And then if we go back to March, we see what I called a Plutonian geomagnetic storm because Pluto changed signs that very day on the 23rd. So again, more planetary geometry correlations there. We can also look at our ionization for the past 3 days. So let's just give this a look. And it's interesting because remember, we have the moon in the magnetotail right now. She'll be leaving the magnetotail in maybe just a day or two. So this solar flare and anything else that is sent off will be impacting right as the moon is about leaving the magnetotail. So there's been quite a bit happening. I don't know why this is taking so long to load. Here we go. So this is May 5th there, and you can see some interesting kind of back and forth dynamics with between blue, which is higher frequency, here it is, and then also red, which is lower frequency, but then things kind of settle out. This is the F2 layer at about 300 kilometers up, the absolute frequency of it compared to a 30-day median. So this is, if it's strongly dark red or strongly blue, dark blue, that means it's quite a bit different than the 30-day median value. And so it's kind of a running average. If you have a month straight of solar activity, then it's not going to show much. But you can see some interesting oscillations between the positive and the negative, and also based on hemisphere. Because remember, we are, the northern hemisphere is tilted more, but then there's also some side-to-side component. So some interesting ionosphere perturbations because we've been getting a lot of X-ray flux, and that ionizes the atmosphere, whereas ultraviolet light will go more down into like the ozone layer, which sits below the ionosphere. So wanted to show you that. These are resources that you can all utilize yourself. That's the other reason I'm showing this. So this is the Australian Space Weather Forecasting Center. You have the Kyoto space weather stuff. All the stuff from NOAA is really good. And yeah, wanted to give you the heads up on this solar flare. I saw it come in. I said, might as well make the live stream happen. So thank you all for joining. If you have any questions, now would be the time, and I'll do a little Q&A right now. There's no reason why I can't. So now would be a good time if you have some questions. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate that. I'm doing everything I can to get this channel built out. I've been given some good support from the YouTube algorithm recently, which has been really helpful in promoting my videos and things of that nature. At the same time, there's a lot that goes into this, and there's a whole bunch of videos I've made that are just kind of like waiting in the back, and they haven't been given reach on browse or suggested or whatever. So there's a lot of good resources there that some of you might not have seen. They are longer, but you can put those on, listen to them. The visuals I make should be helpful, but they're not absolutely necessary if you can visualize things yourself. Other alignments ahead that we need to keep an eye out for during this part of the sun's cycle. Well, we do have a really interesting, in terms of planetary geometry, we do have a really interesting grand cross setup coming in end of May, like May 17th to the 22nd, in the very first degrees of all the fixed signs. So Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus. And that's going to involve Jupiter, that's going to involve Mars, and that involves Pluto. And then the other two are just like lunar nodes. So that will be potentially something to look out for. I know there's some people that predict like earthquakes based on planetary geometry, but I don't have that science, and that's not too clear yet, so I can't really make comments on that. But perhaps it's accurate. But definitely some interesting planetary geometry there. And then I would say after that, what you would like to look for in terms of the sun is Venus will be hanging out and being conjunct with the sun, because she will, based on the Earth's rotation and orbit around the sun, she'll go retrograde. So she'll be hanging out and be conjunct with the sun from like Earth view for nearly 2 months. So yeah, in regards to that's my answer to your question. Let me look a little further. Have I reached out to David Dubine? No, I don't know who that is. But I will adapt 2030. Sounds interesting. I hopefully will see increase of subs. Thank you, Shelly. Appreciate that. Yes, this could cause power outages. Now, it's only an M class, but it's a very broad M class flare. That's just kind of a thing to emphasize here. If we go back to our our X-ray, it's pretty fat. It's a fat one. So these others were even a little higher, but very quick and short. This is like a sustained solar flare. So that does matter. The area under the curve matters with these things. So that's why I wanted to show you. Mars and Saturn conjunct soon as well. Saturn's in Pisces and Mars will be in Leo. So that conjunction is not going to happen for, probably at least a year. But maybe thinking of an opposition. Good stuff. Interesting. Large earthquake coming. Hopefully not. But the Earth does what she wants. Hello from Maui. Well, beautiful island. Been there many times. Hello to you. And during a new moon phase, does a flare get impacted? That's an interesting question, because the moon would be in between the sun and the Earth, and it's actually fairly close to the Earth. So it has been measured to affecting the interplanetary magnetic field in its wake. Even though the moon does not have a magnetosphere anymore, it was hypothesized that it did. There's evidence for that. Back like 1 billion years ago, the Earth and moon actually had like a combined magnetosphere, which is really interesting and cool to think about. But I haven't seen any research of them measuring the interplanetary magnetic field around the moon during a solar flare. I think we'll see a lot more of that, though, in 2024 if they land some people on the moon, which is interesting because they're going to be landing people on the moon during basically solar cycle 25 peak, and the moon has no atmosphere or magnetosphere. So it doesn't sound like a smart idea to me, just in terms of like radiation dynamics. You wouldn't want to be getting burnt to a crisp during a solar flare. So I don't know how they're planning around that. It seems like poor timing. Doesn't seem thought out, but hey, I'm not an engineer at NASA, and they are very smart people, folks. So we'll see what happens there. But I'd imagine they'll put some orbs, like satellites in orbit around the moon, preemptively for that. If they're smart, they would. So they really start measuring these dynamics in the local environment, just as they do with Earth. Because if you want a space weather forecast for Earth, you have to have those satellites, and you would want space weather forecast for the moon too. Because they are in different sections of space-time. Crazy dreams. Yeah, crazy dreams over here too. It's been really, really strong. And I'll say, if you want stronger dreams, then fasting is one way to do that. I found that the dream potentiation goes up with fasting, and then also cutting things out that affect your neurochemistry. I mean, canvas would be one example, but there's other things too that will also help potentiate your dreams. And then also setting your attention, saying, I want to dream tonight. If you're not getting dreams often, then that helps with dreams too. I should really get in contact with ADAPT 2030. Well, you know, maybe it'll happen. And the magnetosphere weakening. Yeah, that is that's tough to say. We do have, obviously it is weakening, and that weakening has been accelerating, but I think that what we're discovering here's, and I'm going to make a whole video on like magnetic reversals and excursions and weakenings and everything. This is going to be this summer, so you're going to have to wait. But what I will say is it's important to understand that it's not just like, oh, we have this data that's weakening, that's what's happening. It's also, well, how are we measuring the magnetic field strength back in like 1750? Like, we didn't have magnetometers back then. It was very crude. Our way of measuring stuff was very crude. And a lot of it is also like based on so many different ways of interpolating data points and everything. Like, we have historical data points from like pottery sherds and things. But as our equipment becomes more precise, it's a natural evolution for us to be able to start making more precise real-time observations. So there's probably many times that the magnetosphere is weakened 100 nanotesla over the span of 5 years, and then it's also increased by 100 nanotesla over the span of 5 years. That could just be normal geomagnetic noise. But because we're noticing it for the first time and it's going in a certain direction, it's easy to say, oh, well, it's accelerating this fast and it's going to be at zero soon. It's just like that data graphic. Well, you know, any type of interpolation. And we're just going too far beyond, I think, with a lot of these hypotheses of what's going to happen with the Earth's magnetic field. So yes, it's weakening, but it's not weakening at such a rate that I would be concerned. It's still a very strong magnetic field. It might have come down from like, you know, a high of 80,000 nanotesla over the past like 6,000 years ago or so, but it's not like we're down to 10,000 nanotesla. So I will be making a video on that. I'll be doing it, you know, all the justice that it deserves, and going into some of those like, you know, be mindful of this scientific fact that we're measuring from different devices at different levels of quality, things of that nature. That's really important. And it's not touched on by people that don't really want to touch on that because it breaks their narrative. So just FYI, that's my opinions and thoughts. I think it's really important to be mindful of those best scientific principles. I'm just going to scroll through this a little bit more, and then I'm going to end the chat. Thank you all for joining. And Earth isn't going to become a star. If anything was to become a star, it would be Jupiter. That is absolutely right. Yeah, there's some interesting theories out there. But Jupiter has the same composition as a star. It's like 10 parts hydrogen, 1 part helium, then some other trace gases. And it was almost like it was like trying to become a star and then just wasn't able to finally reach that threshold. It emits 2 times more heat than it absorbs from the sun, as does Saturn. Though it is more massive. Jupiter is more massive than all the other planets combined times 2.5. So though Saturn and Jupiter are similar size, Jupiter is quite a bit denser. Its atmosphere is like incredibly dense. Like there's really almost no differentiation between its atmosphere going from gas to liquid. It's just like this continuous like gradient. It's really insane. So I like that comment, John. Earth's magnetosphere is like a candle you can't blow out. I like that too. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely push on it and all this stuff, but there's an intrinsic dynamo. That's what's suspected, that there's this dynamo action with this outer liquid core and then the inner core being composed of highly ferromagnetic materials generated from the beginning of the whole solar system, which again, also like how much of that do we know? Like, has anyone gone back 5 billion years ago? No. So it's a lot of it's like interpolation and conjecture, and just we have some cool data points that we can look at. But again, for example, look at like radiocarbon 14 dating. Well, when you have changes in the solar cycle, you have carbon 14 values change by up to like 25%. So you have to take into account the solar cycle's effect on creating carbon 14, which is radioactive, which you do carbon 14 dating on. If you don't take that into account, then your dating is going to be off. And if you don't know that, then you'll never know. So there's so much stuff that we just don't know that's interrelated, but we're just completely clueless on, that in 50 years we're going to look back and laugh at how ignorant we are. So I think it's really good to just be very cautious and careful with our statements. So anyways, thank you all for joining. I wish you all a really good night or morning, wherever you are. Blessings and love to all of you. Thank you all so much for your support and making this really work out, because I've been working really hard on my channel for like a year and a half, and I hit about 5,000 subs, and then just kind of overnight, about 2 months ago to the day, is when I really started to have videos take off. So yeah, that really changed a lot. I'm getting close to my next subscriber benchmark, which is 37,700. I really hope to hit that in the month of May, doing everything I can to do that, but more importantly, doing everything I can to help you all stay educated on what's happening, aware of what's happening, and also, of course, educated and informed about your own body, your health and wellness. And more important than just education is also inspiring you to do these health and wellness things that make you just a healthier person, because you can't fill up other people's cups. You can't really interact with the community in a meaningful way if you're not you yourself like full, abundant, happy, and healthy. So that all starts with me also doing these very things. So as much as I would like to, let's say, make 3 videos a day, I also need to be out there earthing. I also need to be out there doing yoga, doing my own spiritual practice, meditation, all these things that are really good. So I have to set an example and do the practice myself. And I think that's the most effective way to help everyone else and inspire them to do that. So I hope I've inspired some of you to do some of these things. I read all your comments, and I really appreciate them. They make my day. And it's just really amazing to see like how many people I've helped, the amount of hours that have been watched with these videos, and just the impact I've had on the world, and just knowing that this channel is still so small. It's still such a small channel, yet it's already having a really large impact. So yeah, it's been really incredible, and you are all the best. You're all in here early. Don't think I'm going to forget you if this channel becomes much larger, because I have a good memory. So yeah, you're in a special place. I'm very blessed to have you all, and let's ride out Solar Cycle 25 together. I'll keep you up to date, and yeah, just stay in tune. And you can always, there's a bunch of resources. Let me just show these really quick. The electromagnetic fields and health playlist is really good. If you haven't gone here, please check this out and go through this in your spare time. Some of these are long videos, so again, you can listen to them. The visuals are nice, but yes, at the end of the day, you can listen to them and just kind of absorb the information that way. It's like a long podcast. And then also the earthing and grounding playlist is good. And then I also will show you my website, which I will be putting more articles on this summer. Right now I'm really focusing on videos, but when I'm traveling this summer, I'm going to be writing much more because it's easier. So here is the Schumann Resonances Complete Guide. I would check that out if I were you. But if we go to wildfreeorganic.com, you can see my website, and there's a bunch of stuff in this wellness section, and then there's categories. So I would suggest you go into that and you can look through this. A lot of this is been written over the past year and a half. So there's plenty of content that I've made out there. Some of it has been done a good job at getting out there in Google search, but a lot of it has not, because I honestly need to update this website, make it faster, things of that nature. So yes, doing everything I can to really help people out in this regard. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, even while I'm traveling, to the best of my ability. So yeah, you all have a great night and morning, and I will see you all in the next video. Ciao.